the road to hell is paved with good intentions. In fact, the best news is that instead of there being a shortage, there is going to be more and more energy. The future of the cars is hybrid.
I wanted to start by asking the Delhi elections.
Which we are going to win, by the way. BJP has settled them in. Do you seriously expect the Rohingya to vote for a BJP candidate? Delhi is polluted, it is mismanaged.
Hello and welcome to this very special conversation. We have with us India's Petroleum and Natural Gas Minister, author and a former diplomat, Hardeep Singh Puri. Thank you so much for speaking to Brut.
Thank you.
I wanted to start by asking the Delhi elections.
Which we are going to win, by the way.
That was my question. But very quickly, of course, in the public domain, there have been, comments exchanged between the Aam Aadmi Party and the BJP on the settlements of Rohingyas, right? My question to you is, Rohingyas, could they have not been stopped at the border?
No, let me first of all say this is a false narrative.
Okay.
The Aam Aadmi Party doesn't seem to realize that there is something called an illegal infiltrator, okay? And then there are refugees. The point about the Rohingyas is, wherever they've come from, who has encouraged them? The point is, if your MLA is shown on TV talking to them and saying, I will give you 10,000 rupees a month, I'll give you this, I'll do with that. The idea is to bring, this is not only here, they're doing it everywhere. They're trying to bring in people who have no business to be here, and they're utilizing those people to make them ration cards firstly, and then ultimately get them a vote, and then get them votes in the election. I mean to say, I saw some statement, I couldn't conceal my amusement. BJP has settled them in. Do you seriously expect the Rohingya to vote for a BJP candidate? What are we discussing? I mean, and if you, today I saw another tweet by Mr. Kejriwal, oh no, they are mistaking, they're in the name of Rohingya, they're talking of Purvanchali. He's talking nonsense. Today the anger against the Aam Aadmi Party is clear, it is palpable, and it is anger bordering on real anger, because Delhi is polluted, it is mismanaged, the air pollution, the river pollution, etc. That's why these guys in the last list of 20 candidates that he announced, 13 of them were outsiders, brought in from other parties. I think they're going to be devastatingly routed in the next election, and you will see a BJP government here.
And on the Delhi pollution, sir, there's always a back and forth in terms of this is the centre saying this is a state
When there was
issue.
a Congress government in Punjab, it's a Congress government in Punjab which is not able to control Parali burning. Then when the Aam Aadmi Party government say, well, it's not Punjab, it's coming from X other place, Y place. Look, madam, if you're not interested in doing something, then this kind of diversionary talk will take place. I think Kejriwal's days, he's no longer the chief minister, but I think even Atishi will lose her seat.
What would be the top two priorities for a BJP government in Delhi if it comes to power?
To make Delhi livable again is the main priority. To make Delhi livable, it's such a beautiful city. I mean, if you look at Delhi in terms of its traditions, etc., its history, they have completely destroyed it. My own conversations with him will get me very worried. And this whole freebie culture, look, I am for freebies, make no mistake. Because if there is a economic incentive to be given, but our freebies are very different. He wants to give 300 units of electricity free. What the Prime Minister says is, take a subsidy from me, set up a solar panel on your rooftop, produce cheap electricity, use 300 units free for yourself. We put up a charging station, you charge your car with it, and next we have a national grid, you put it into the grid and we'll pay you for it. That's a difference between good management. By the way, wherever there have been Congress-led governments, today I saw that they were putting cess on all kinds of things in Karnataka. They wanted to tax toilets in Himachal. You see, if you don't know how to govern and if you're extravagant and you're going to spend beyond your means, then you'll have to resort to all these things.
Right. I'm going to shift gears to the green energy. We're sitting in Delhi. It's winter. We've all been through the pollution. It started again in a couple of days. Tell us, how can we reduce our dependence on fossil fuels?
Start by taking on board a few very basic considerations. That the dialogue and the thinking that went into the need for green energy overlooked the fact that we are not ready as yet to do away with the fossil fuels.
Okay.
So a lot of movement was created by the climate activists, by the, I call them loosely a group of do-gooders, and I'm an admirer of that, because the fundamental preoccupation they have is that we, that is you and I, you are much younger, but we have to leave the planet in better shape than we inherited it.
Right.
And I'm sorry the jury is still out, but I think we're going to leave it in a worse state than we inherited it. But there are reasons for it. You can't point the blame on any one person or any group of people. And as a result of this enthusiasm amongst the do-gooders, what happened is that the investment required in the traditional fossil fuel energy started diminishing. When that diminished, there was chaos in the energy market. You were not ready with green energy yet you were not being able to produce even sufficient fossil fuel. Plus, the whole market for fossil fuels is controlled by a cartel called OPEC+. They wanted to drive a price of $80 or $100 for something that should cost more than $8 per barrel. So on one hand, there were a lot of people making a lot of money out of it, and the poor consumers. I mean, the people in the global south, about which the younger generation is concerned, and I ought to be concerned even more. So what we did was, we means our generation, that they allowed themselves to be guided on this process by people who were sitting in places where there was no problem. As a result of which, they overlooked the fact that large parts of the global south don't have energy. Now, we in India provide clean cooking gas to a family which is an Ujjwala recipient, for as little as 5 rupees in a day. Or a gas cylinder for a family of 4, which costs, what? Maximum 15 rupees in a day. Whereas parts of Southern Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, they don't have any LPG or clean cooking gas. So the balance that needs to be struck, and I think now between the COP and the G20, etc., there's a rebalancing taking place. Today, we say we have to redouble our efforts for green energy. And we are doing that. India, in particular, is an excellent story. We had a biofuel blending of 1.4% when the Prime Minister took office in 2014.
Right. I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. I wanted to pick on a couple of things that you said, and if we can discuss that for our audience. The first one is on the generation bit, right, which you said, and the do-gooders. Are you saying that we went wrong in terms of that we had to make that switch completely, which is not possible? And we were guided by market forces to say, okay, stop everything which is sort of coal, fossil fuel related and move completely to green energy. This is where we went wrong, and now we are.
Well, you know, I want to put it to you in a even more simplistic way. I don't think the objectives, the desires were wrong. But there's a saying in the English language, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So even if you want, your intentions are good, but you know, be careful. What is the primary requirement for any society? It's availability of energy. And for an country like India,
we don't have.
No, we have energy. We have today. You can look at any economy, and if the economy is doing well, the energy consumption is going up.
Right.
So here is shooting up.
Right.
So you need availability, you need affordability, and then you need sustainability. But you cannot have a situation where you jump from availability or the lack of it to sustainability. I think this is where my young friends, and I have a lot of amongst them who tell me we must move away from fossil fuels. I agree with them. I totally agree with them. But the point of the matter is that it's not you and me who are going to decide. Today, India has a consumption per day of 5.4 million barrels of crude oil in a day. I would like to see that coming down, but I think it's increasing. And by the time we reach 2030, it may be 6 million barrels per day.
Because people are growing richer, they want to buy cars, they are buying...
It's not only that. It's not only that. You see, the cars that you might buy have electric vehicles. But if the grid is not totally green, then then you're not helping out totally. Secondly, energy, which means petrol and diesel at the retail point, a lot of it is used for industrial purposes, a lot of it is used in agriculture. So, if I want to get a good night's sleep, I asked myself, have we done the right things in terms of the energy transition? And that's what I said. Our story is very good. Biofuels, we've done very well. We are going very fast on compressed biogas. On green hydrogen, which is the fuel of the future, we are doing well. And that is where we will go.
Okay. Let's talk about affordability, which was the other point that you made. And you mentioned there is an OPEC plus cartel. Tell us a little bit.
You seem surprised. I mean,
I'm saying
others may not call it that. But
exactly. The choice of words.
No, choice of words. I'm very clear in my mind. If you talk to OPEC, and they're all, most of them are my friends. If I talk to them, they say, no, we don't deal with price. So if I ask them, then what do you deal with? Oh, we deal with the total amount of energy that we release. Well, if you release limited amounts of energy that is limited in terms of less than what is desired, obviously the price will go up. But now the good thing is that over the last a year or so, they have reduced the total availability of energy and brought it down from 102 million barrels a day to about 97. And yet the price is not going up. Because there is more and more energy coming onto the global market. In fact, the best news is that instead of there being a shortage, there is going to be more and more energy. So some people are holding back their stocks of energy in order to be able to keep the price stable or take it up.
Okay. So if we had to simplify the timeline for younger audiences, what kind of a timeline would you draw for them, saying that, okay, you will be looking at, say, a great EV infrastructure, a blended fuel, dependence on fossil fuel coming down?
I can tell your younger audience that moment has arrived.
It's arrived already.
It's already arrived. Now it's a question of how much you can scale up and how much. And the scaling up can't be done by the government. It will be done by the people. And the people will also do the scaling up dependent on the kind of behavioral change we are able to introduce. You know, it's like you built toilets initially, but people were not using them. You saw that famous movie where they wanted to use it as a tailor shop.
Right.
But now there's no longer relevant. Anyone who's got used to having a toilet, public toilet or a community toilet, apart from a toilet in the hole, will never let go of the toilet. Similarly, somebody who's used to an electric vehicle or a compressed biogas or CNG vehicle or something that's run on biofuel or hybrid. Look, the future of the cars is hybrid.
It's hybrid.
It's hybrid. That means it would be an electric vehicle partly and partly run on ethanol. Ethanol, because electric vehicles, there's a big debate on electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are also succeeding but they're expensive. But they're succeeding essentially because the number of charging stations which is coming up are very good. And they're cheaper to run. So if you have a battery with an endurance of 300 kilometers, so you charge up once and then you can carry on. But the initial cost is higher.
But for the EV, I mean, a lot of forums talk about, I cannot go on a longer drive, the infrastructure has to pick up better.
I don't think that's going to be a problem for too long.
Okay.
Because most of the oil companies are actually, 22,000 of them are setting up EV charging stations. Within cities, there's no problem. If you get them on highways also. So what will happen is that if you have a charging of 300 and you're traveling 800 kilometers, surely after the first 200 kilometers, you'll find somebody who'll charge again. Then when you still got 100 kilometers or 50 kilometers run, you get another charging station. That infrastructure will come up.
Okay.
By the way, setting up an electric vehicles charging infrastructure is not something which is something we need to worry about.
We don't?
That is happening.
Okay.
I mean, the scale, see, it's like this. How many charging stations do I need? For instance, I'll give you another example. We are running some places where we are selling pure 100% ethanol. But there is not much use for it. But we are still doing it because we are encouraging people to shift their diesel tractors from diesel to electric vehicles. I am sure that the balance, that equilibrium between the number of charging stations and this one is being reached. Because the number of electric vehicles being rolled out in terms of numbers is also very large.
So it's, if I get it correct, the infrastructure is almost already there.
It's on the way to being produced.
On the way to
Today, you would not be discouraged from buying an electric vehicle only because you would fear about this thing. If you're discouraged buying it, it's because the cost is still very high. But then you look at the thing. So if you can put in the initial cost, maintaining it is cheap. But then, in any new technology, maintenance, repairs, is a repair infrastructure there? ये हमेशा शुरू में होता है, but once we are a terrific country in terms of bhedchal. Once a trend starts,
Everybody goes to it.
takes off.
It takes off. So behavioral change, a little bit of, as you said, the infrastructure is getting there. The middle bit is on industry. How is that supporting this? They're producing this. They're ready for it.
No, but the beauty of it, I'm so glad you asked me this question. I went to a country which is very famous for biofuels. They were genuinely worried because there is a particular kind of car, it's called a BYD, I think. It's called Build Your Dream. It's a Chinese electric vehicle. And they are selling them very cheap there with the expectation that they will develop a dependence on it. Now, we are doing nothing of the sort. Today, the electric vehicles which are being sold here are being manufactured by Indian players, or if foreign players are coming. So we have no such fear. We will produce those vehicles here. They are being upgraded here. The charging stations are here. We are actually in the midst of and on top of producing our own ecosystem on green energy mobility.
I want to ask you on net zero emissions really quickly and shift gears then. India's target to achieve net zero emissions by 2070. I know it's a very broad question, but where are we on it?
No, I have always maintained that 2070 commitment was taken with a sense of responsibility and a degree of abundant caution. Abundant caution, why? Because we wanted to make sure that we are able to do it. But I can tell you on behalf of my oil companies, all of them have net zero targets between 2035 and 2045. So they'll be the big ones. Once you get fossil fuel done, I don't know about the private sector. I think we'll be net zero well before 2070. But, there are other philosophical questions. Can you get to net zero without, for instance, the use of nuclear energy? I mean, I'm asking questions because, madam, energy consumption is shooting up.
Right. You need that energy from somewhere.
India's average consumption is 3 times the global average. So let me share one statistic with you. The International Energy Agency has predicted that in the next 2 decades, that is the next 20 years, 25% of the increase in demand will come from India.
From India.
So if you have a country which is growing at 6% plus 6.5%, and you are already consuming 3 times the global average, then as the economy grows, more and more energy will be required, and as more energy is consumed, the economy will grow. So it's you're in a very different place than most other countries in the world.
Of course, they've already done their development,
either done that development or saturated. They are stagnant now and declining.
And they used fossil fuels completely when they were on their way
100%.
And were in the developing stage.
Absolutely.
So definitely challenging and good to know about the timeline. I'm going to shift gears to the geopolitical situation, which is very tumultuous. We've seen the Russia-Ukraine fallout. It's actually a double question I want to ask you in 2 parts. The first one is, how did we navigate it with our dependence on fossil fuels, importing it? And the second one is a bit broader one. As we are moving towards EVs, cleaner fuels, do you think the geopolitical situation is also moving in terms of maybe we have to mine differently, we are going to be dependent on different nations for the kind of changes that are taking place there, from, say, maybe building electric highways, vehicles, etc., all of that?
No, you've got a lot of very important issues in that question. First of all, how did we navigate it? I think the very mature, confident and steadfast resolve of the Prime Minister, who has always maintained that his first duty is to the Indian consumer. We have to provide energy to the Indian consumer. Now, if somebody comes and lectures you, don't do this, don't do that, first of all, he or she is not in a position to lecture you, because I had my colleague, the External Affairs Minister, on his way to, I think, the United States, and he called me before that. He said, what do I say if I'm asked about Russian energy? I said, you tell them that they buy more in one afternoon than we do in a quarter. I think he didn't hear the last part. So in his press conference, he said, you guys buy more in one afternoon, telling the European, than we do in a month. Not month, in 3 months. Yeah. Look, there were never any sanctions on Russian oil. What we were told is that they wanted to impose a price cap, which means the Russian oil should be bought at a particular price. Now, that's music to my ears. if I can get oil and it's subject to a price cap because of the West, and the Russians are willing to adhere to the price cap, I'm very happy. I can get the energy. But you know, situations never remain static. They change very quickly. And they change essentially because the global situation changes. So what happened is that when the Russia-Ukraine military conflict took place, our imports of crude from Russia were only 0.2%. Last month they were 38%. But they keep going up and down. They keep going up and down. I think it's largely a function of discounts. But you know, the government doesn't import energy. It's the oil marketing companies or the private sector company. And we float a tender at the point of importation, whoever can supply the oil cheaper. But also note that there are issues like freight rates, freight costs, there are insurance costs, and there is also the question of the exchange rate.
The second portion that I'd asked you on, that as we move towards more electric vehicles, etc., how do you see the geopolitical situation evolve?
See, your movement to electric vehicles will not determine the geopolitical situation. Geopolitical situation today is dependent on a lot of other things. You could ask, how will that in turn? See, I think there are fault lines in the Western economies. There are strains. If you look at the inflation rates, if you look at unemployment figures, Canada is a case in point. The economies of Western European countries like UK, France, and Germany, there are concerns there. There are snap elections being called. Japan has been slow growth for over extended period of time. China, I can see the growth is not as buoyant, but it's a $19 trillion economy. So even if they get 2% growth, that's a lot of economic activity. But I think this bright spark and all that is India. We got a large population. You were the 11th largest economy. You came down to the 5th. We are hopefully will be the 3rd largest economy in a short period of time. Today, and I'm carefully weighing my words, we are in a situation we are not facing energy shortages. So we can play the market card because they have to sell somewhere. It's not as if their fascination for green energy will result in them taking a decision that we are not mining petroleum leases anymore and that we're not producing fossil fuel. They would rather want to get rid of it. So I even see a time coming where whoever has got oil, that's why OPEC cutbacks don't work, because some members of OPEC are still selling more than the quantity.
Right.
I'm not saying it, it's global commentators are saying. So we have a situation in which we can play this game, and this is part of the way we have navigated. We've increased the number of the sources of supply from 27 to 39. We are going for competitive bidding. If anyone can supply a little cheaper, we'll go there.
The second last one is on one nation, one polls. It's being debated currently in the parliament. We all know there are the pros and cons which are being debated. The first, of course, is we are always in election mode. That's something
Well, that's a very major concern.
Can be arrested.
Yeah.
But from the regional parties, it is being seen as if the federal structure is going to hamper the federal structure.
I don't think Shiv Sena is a regional party, and they're quite happy with it. I know a lot of other regional parties, right? But first of all, it's not been debated; it's just been introduced, and now it's gone to the joint JPC Parliamentary Committee. My own view is that the minute people reflect on this and also come to the realization that this is how it always was, it is far preferable and more economical to have one country, one poll, than to be in a constant state of
election.
हमारा एक खत्म नहीं होता, दूसरा शुरू हो जाता है, दूसरा खत्म नहीं होता, तीसरा शुरू हो जाता है. Now I don't think that's good for governance. And look, that will suit anyone who's in power. No country has a situation where one party is in power forever. I mean, yesterday when the Honorable Home Minister was talking about amendment, he said that in 16 years that the BJP has been around, we did 22 amendments. In Congress, it's been there for about, 50 years more, 55 years or more. They've done 77 amendments. It's not the amendment, the quality of the amendment. We have done the amendments to increase the space for the individual, freedoms to increase. They've done it to curtail. Now, the Aam Aadmi Party's brand of politics, I'm shifting from Congress to Aam Aadmi Party, is to distort developmental priorities. I also want the people to get good thing. That's why I talk about 33 crore gas connections, 10 crore, 30 lakhs Ujjwala connection, 4 crore Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, 50 crore Mudra loans, Ayushman Bharat, 38 crore beneficiaries of Ayushman Bharat. That is what you need to do. Not ki it's the simple saying, if you teach a person how to fish, he or she will be able to fish and feed himself and the family. When you give them free fish to eat, will eat the fish and then be hungry again.
My last question to you, sir, is you've been a diplomat, you've authored books, and of course you've held various portfolios as a cabinet minister. Give us a few points for our young generation in leadership and governance.
Well, first message I want to give your young viewership is that you're very lucky you're born here now. When I was born, which was 5 years after the independence and 2 years, 2 months after the constitution was adopted, it was a very small economy. We had to work very hard. First of all, we are very grateful for the previous generation which got us the independence. The previous generation which toiled. The British didn't leave on their own. A situation was created, a mass movement, where they were left in no option but to leave. My generation is the first generation which grew up after that. And we saw a very small economy, a lot of poverty. In the last 10 years, 250 million people have moved out of multidimensional poverty. That's quite a thing. When I left university and I wanted a job, if you did very well academically, you could get a teaching job in one of the colleges. Or there were 1 or 2 private sector companies or some public sector companies. Today, a youngster comes out of a university, he's spoiled for choice. Now, they'll say a lot of money. Yes, you're producing 1 million engineers a year. So first of all, that's my word, that you are lucky to be born now. But you're even luckier. Because before you are in your full midlife bloom, India will be a developed country. Today we are a $4 trillion economy going on to a 7, 8, 10 trillion. But by, today we are in 2024 end, let's say 2025 beginning. The average age of your viewers would be what, 15, 16?
Right.
Okay. In the next 20 years, 30, as India becomes a developed country, they'll be 35, 36 years old. That is when the per capita income will be up, the quality of life will improve. So, best of luck, guys.
The action is here. Hardeep Singh Puri, thank you so much for speaking to Brut.
Thank you. Thank you.